I've only had one client, the people. I intend to be a president for all Americans, to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people. It is the duty to be a bold leader, in our country.
Okay, recording.
I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms.
Sounds good, it looks good, okay.
Let's do this!
These last couple of weeks have been absolutely crazy for this woman, Kamala Harris, Vice President of the United States and possibly future president. But as I've talked to more and more people, I've found that most people don't know who she is, where she comes from, and what she truly believes in.
She pretends to be one thing when she's in front of one audience. She pretends to be something else when she's in front of another audience. Kamala Harris is a chameleon.
It seems that most people just don't know who she is. But why? Why does she switch sides on so many issues? And is it true that her values have not changed?
The most important and most significant aspect, my values have not changed.
Election time is so confusing for so many people, so I've been going on a deep dive, finding everything I can about Kamala Harris, where she comes from, what she believes in, who helped her get to where she is. And one of the most important things I've found with all this research is why she flips sides on so many issues.
What's something big that I've changed my mind about? It's more about evolved.
So let me show you who Kamala Harris truly is.
Everything is in context. I suggest we should be smart on crime. There's a balance to be struck between being tough and being a bitch. Fight back or they retreat. I, Kamala Davy Harris, solemnly swear. It starts with an M and it ends with a.
Politics is a bit of a sensitive topic, so before we start, I just wanted to give you a heads up that while I was making this video, I was extremely careful to be as neutral on the subject as possible. I am not in any way making this video to try and sway you to a certain side or to try and get you to vote for a certain person, but I am simply making this video to inform you on who Kamala Harris truly is and how she got to where she is. So yeah, with that said, let's get started. Kamala Harris was born October 20th, 1964 in Oakland, California. Her parents got divorced when she was 7, leaving the two girls to be raised by their mom.
I remember how people would look at my mother and make certain assumptions about her intelligence or her capacity or her right to belong.
Kamala and I both get our grit from our mothers.
From a very young age, Kamala could see what her mother was going through as a single, lower middle class mom.
But I also knew how she suffered. I knew how she stayed up late at night.
As a kid, seeing your parents struggle through life definitely has an effect on you. And it really does, in a lot of ways, shape how you see the world in the long run. And this for sure happened with Kamala. From a young age, you already start to see signs of her standing up for what she actually believes in. I mean, you have this one instance with her friend where some kid broke her art project and Kamala
jumped in between him and me and said something that made him so mad, he picked up a rock and hit her on the head.
And so you start to see this toughness and resilience form in this young girl who watches her mom struggle every day.
There was nothing given to her.
Someone who doesn't hesitate to stand up for what's right.
You hear this and you kind of see the person that Kamala is today. Someone who gives a voice to those who feel unheard, who preaches the message of standing up for what is right. And on top of that, you see this other side to her, this almost aggressive side that will not back down if she believes that what she is doing is the right thing to do. So she ends up graduating from Westmount High School in 1982 and proceeds to attend Howard University, where she gets a degree in political science and economics. During this time, there was a lot going on. The first black woman won Miss America, people of color were beginning to gain positions in fields where previously there were none, and stuff like this has a very big effect on young Kamala. So she decides that she is not going to stop at just this one degree.
She was known for being a woman about business. So we would have briefcases.
So I think we took ourselves fairly seriously.
She decides to go to Hastings College and acquire a law degree, and by the year 1990, she is finally ready to enter the workforce. Kamala has had a very long career, and although I'm not going to go into every single case that she's been a part of, I'm going to give you a pretty in-depth overview to what she's been through. The main thing you need to know about her career is that she is insanely sharp, very confrontational, and is just the type of person that will always go the extra mile to get ahead. no matter what.
He has the...
Yes or no, sir?
He has...
Please answer the question.
I think I've answered the question.
No, you've not. I'm asking you a very direct question. Yes or no?
I'm not sure I know everyone who works at that law firm.
I don't think you need to. I think you need to know who you talked with.
She starts her career as a deputy district attorney in Alameda County, California, where she is described as, quote, an able prosecutor on her way up. This marked her entry into law enforcement, and she mainly focused on cases involving robbery, burglary, sexual assault, and homicide. So yeah, this is like the real deal.
After trying many cases that were included in the juvenile system and homicides and rapes and child sexual assault cases, the whole gamut, if we deal with them early on, we're going to save ourselves a lot in terms of public safety and public dollars later in their life.
In 1998, she took the role of managing attorney for the career unit in San Francisco, and this eventually led her to the California State Employment head of the Division on Children and Families, where she tackled issues related to child abuse and neglect. This opportunity allowed her to create many connections in San Francisco and really showed her how to play the game of life, how to make connections with the right people, how to get into the rooms where the decisions are being made.
Think about creating for yourself a safety group, and it would be that group of 3 or 4 people. Make sure you identify and start cultivating that group of people who you have.
So in 2003, Kamala runs against Terrence Hallinan for district attorney and wins.
If you raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Kamala Harris.
I, Kamala Harris.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States during such time as I hold the office of District Attorney for the City and County of San Francisco.
Congratulations.
And so this is where you begin to see Kamala's true beliefs actually play out in the field. This is also where her career completely begins to take off. There's a term that you should probably be aware of during this time called recidivism.
It's the highest recidivism rate in the country, although not by far. That's a problem.
Recidivism is the tendency for a convicted criminal to reoffend. What I'm about to talk about here is probably one of Kamala's biggest accomplishments. She set up a program that helped particularly drug offenders with job training, education, and all sorts of life skills. The people that went through this program had a recidivism rate of 10% compared to the 50 to 60% that was before.
And Back on Track as an initiative has proven over the course of 4.5 years to reduce the recidivism or reoffense rate for that population from 54% to less than 10%.
What this means is because of Kamala, criminals were repeating crimes less than they were before. Kamala, criminal, crimes, I have no idea why I wrote that sentence. I had to say it like 8 times. Oh my.
But when we're talking about nonviolent crime, we need to have a meaningful system to reduce the likelihood that that revolving door will continue.
During her tenure, conviction rates for felonies also rose from 52% in 2003 to 67% in 2006.
San Francisco, in my office, we've increased the conviction rates for the DA's office to the highest they've been in just under 15 years.
And you begin to see this trend play out here that would continue for the rest of her life. This trend where Kamala is extremely strict on prosecution, but also really focuses on rehabilitation and getting criminals back out on the streets in like a good way where they won't repeat crimes anymore. She is helping people move on with their lives.
She's California's most innovative district attorney. Kamala Harris created a long overdue child assault unit.
Our justice system needs drastic repair. Early intervention leaves room in our prisons for the violent criminals who should be there. I did it in San Francisco. As Attorney General, I can do it across California.
So in 2009, she runs against Steve Cooley for Attorney General of California. This election is a lot closer than the previous one, but she ends up winning by less than 1%. She won by around 74,000 votes, which is a huge deal in the giant state of California. But she manages to clutch up and becomes the first woman to serve as the California Attorney General.
And I promise you this, I'm going to use the power of this office to lift up the next generation of Californians.
It's really this point in her career where you start to see a little bit more of the modern Kamala. The one standing up to the bully at school, and the one that's protecting people like her mother who are suffering, the lower middle class specifically. We're gonna go over a lot very fast here, so get ready. Let's start with schooling. Harris successfully defrauded a school system, particularly Corinthian colleges, preying on students, resulting in $1 billion of student loans being returned. She fought for the environment, suing BP for $14.4 million for their mishandling of underground storage tanks at gas stations in California. She fought against Proposition 8, saying it was unconstitutional and paved the way for same-sex marriage in California. She even sued Apple about slowing down their older phones. Okay, that was pretty cool of her. I still have a home button, so Thanks, Kamala. Anyway, she also secured $20 billion to ease the mortgage crisis that homeowners were going through, and she increased resources to fight against human trafficking. And she did all this while continuing to put away criminals and continuing to help reform. Okay, that was a lot, but we're not done here.
And making it official today, California's Attorney General Kamala Harris announced that she will indeed run for the U.S. Senate. Harris making the announcement by posting a statement on her website.
It is the duty of the United States Senator from the great state of California to be a bold leader, in our country.
All of Kamala's life had been leading up to this moment where she could show what her true values and beliefs are.
Put your left hand on the Bible, raise your right. Do you solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution?
The role is making sure that the voices that must be heard are heard and that they're not drowned out. And
here she is able to be who she truly is, and a lot of it is actually really motivating. She continues to reform the criminal justice system with the First Step Act, which looked to reduce recidivism. She co-sponsored the DREAM Act, which helped undocumented immigrants get citizenship, and became a leading voice with the Defense of Marriage Act. Along with her bright side, though, you also start to see a different side to her.
You know, I'll tell you, Scott, one of the things that really concerns me is that as a prosecutor, I've learned that when people are attacked, they do one of two things. They fight back or they retreat. So we have to fight.
A more ambitious side that was becoming more and more public by the day. In this hearing with Jeff Sessions, she managed to get out of him that he had not read any of the written guidelines on a very important issue.
Did you have any communications with Russian officials for any reason during the campaign that have not been disclosed in public or to this committee?
I don't recall it.
Sir, I have just a few.
Will you let me qualify it? If I don't qualify it, you'll accuse me of lying.
Or in this other hearing where she interviewed William Barr on whether Donald Trump accepted money from Egypt in his 2016 campaign.
Has the president or anyone at the White House ever asked or suggested that you open an investigation of anyone? Yes or no, please, sir?
President or anybody else.
Seems you'd remember something like that and be able to tell us.
Yeah, but I'm trying to grapple with the word suggest.
This radical Kamala accomplished a lot so far, and you can see these trends in her views. The first is that she is dedicated to helping people like her mother, specifically the lower middle class who suffers. Second, that she is extremely strict on criminals and making sure that they're put away, but also helping with the reformation system and making sure that they get the help that they need. And three, that she is absolutely ruthless in everything that she does. She is extremely confrontational, and she will not back down from anyone who is in her way. So where will this get her?
Now project that former Vice President Joe Biden will win.
But what about his running mate, California Senator Kamala Harris?
She launched her campaign with more than 20,000 supporters.
We did it, Joe. You're going to be the next president of the United States.
So let's take a break here for a second. We're going to go back to her time as vice president in a minute here, but I want to talk a little bit about how she got here. What were the actual traits that she had that managed to get her to where she is right now? Whether you like her or not, she has been the district attorney of San Francisco, Attorney General of California, and a Senator of California. These are big accomplishments for anyone, and as this channel is all about learning from the great people of history, it would be wise to learn from how she got here. For one, Kamala has very widely resonating values, particularly justice, equality, and inclusion. She has almost positioned herself as someone who fights for the working class, and I think this is also something that she genuinely believes in as well.
I learned really from the moment of birth how much people have in common. That guides me through today, especially when we now have such powerful forces in our country that are trying to sow hate and division among us and have people point fingers at each other.
You can see how she uses her own experiences to relate to other people as well, because she grew up as a child of someone in the working class.
In the Bay, you either live in the hills or the flatlands. We lived in the flats.
And she says it all the time.
A beautiful working class neighborhood.
Not only does she have these values that appeal to most demographics, but she also has this thing called intersectionality. Intersectionality is a concept that stems from Marxist origins. Essentially what it is a bunch of different type of minority groups coming together and finding unity in the fact that they're all minorities. Kamala, being a black female, really plays into this role and almost becomes a voice for these people. She has not only become a voice for women, but also for the black community, and for the disabled, and for the gender minorities, and altogether, this is a fairly large group of people.
Regardless of where they were born or what languages spoke,
by their grandparents or how their last names are spelled.
It also helps that she's a daughter of Indian and Jamaican immigrants, and she really plays to it. She becomes this voice for the intersection of multiple identities. Oh yeah, and sometimes she talks a little bit differently as well.
You better thank a union member. 5-day work week.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? Kind of weird, but it certainly is a role that you can play to. I'm not saying that you have to play to certain minorities, but I'm simply saying that if there's a stereotype that you have or some sort of unique feature that a lot of other people can relate to, use it, play to it, use that stereotype to your advantage. Kamala does this very well, and it's one of the reasons she's so successful. And I mean, she's not the only one.
But for that to happen, we must defeat Comrade Kamala Harris.
Third is that Kamala is extremely good at building strategic alliances. When she was rising through the ranks in California, she made an alliance with the former mayor of San Francisco named Willie Brown.
Kamala Harris will be in charge of the ticket. She is probably the one person that can beat Trump. And the goal of Democrats have been to beat Trump.
This was very big for her and helped her gain a lot of influence in San Francisco. As Attorney General of California, she made a very strong impression on former President Barack Obama, and that helped a ton. And everyone knows that in the 2020 primaries, she caught the eye of a very charming young man named Joe Biden.
Well, there was a failure of states to integrate public schools in America. I was part of the second class to integrate Berkeley, California public schools almost 2 decades after Brown v. Board of Education.
Because your city council made that decision.
I don't think the liberals like that joke. Okay. Speaking of primaries and debates, Kamala is an excellent public speaker. Public speaking is a skill that I think everyone should learn, and it's a skill that everyone can get better at. In fact, if there's one reason why Kamala would win the 2024 election, it is going to be her skill at public speaking. I mean, she is simply phenomenal. She speaks very clearly, she doesn't speak too fast, she doesn't speak too slow, she tells stories that resonate with the audience, and she tells them in a very emotional way. And on top of that, she really plays and leans into these stereotypes in her speeches.
You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time.
Maybe a little too much there, but overall, when she talks, people feel inspired. They feel a sense of hope. And that's something that has served her for her entire career. With all these qualities, it doesn't seem like there's much more that she could do. Or perhaps that she should do. This is an interesting one because for most of her career, Kamala has stayed very consistent in most topics. Until...
We are less than 24 hours away from the inauguration of President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear.
I, Kamala Davy Harris, solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Against.
And I take this obligation freely, the duties of the office upon which I am about to enter.
Suddenly, Kamala's opinions begin to change. They become a bit more flexible. And if you don't believe me, here's a couple examples. In this upcoming election, one of the largest debates has been on fracking. Fracking is a process that is used to get natural resources and oil from out of the ground. The problem is that it's not very good for the environment. In 2019, during a CNN town hall meeting, Kamala said, quote, "There is no question I am in favor of banning fracking." However, in 2020, when she became vice president, she was kind of forced into supporting this clean energy plan without banning fracking. Now in 2024, she is on her own, and you would assume that she would go back to her original stance. But that's not exactly what happened. She says,
I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil.
This was during the most recent debate. This same change is noticed in the fact that Kamala actually co-sponsored the Green New Deal, which is in favor of banning fracking, but later was the tie-breaking vote in the Inflation Reduction Act, which was very much a more moderate approach to environmentalism. But maybe this is just one issue that she switched on, right? Well, let's talk about healthcare. Harris was actually a very big supporter and even a co-sponsor of Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All plan, which is a very, very, very far left plan. But suddenly, after joining the Biden campaign, she becomes a lot more moderate on her stance. She supports the Affordable Care Act, which pushes private insurance alongside the public option. This is a pretty radical change. But then again, what can I say? She's a radical person. Next up, you have immigration. Kamala initially started out way to the far left. She co-sponsored things like the DREAM Act, which would allow undocumented immigrants that arrived in the United States as children, and it would help them get their US citizenship. In her presidential campaign, she also wanted to decriminalize border crossings. This is actually another big one because President Biden actually put her in charge of the border problem, and she became a lot more strict on this issue, saying things to immigrants like,
The United States will continue to enforce our laws and secure our border. If you come to our border, you will be turned back.
People even started calling her the Border Czar. My opinion, that's a cool nickname. I don't think she likes it very much. There's a lot more to this topic. I could do a whole separate video on it, but for now, we're just gonna keep moving on. Defunding the police. This is a good one. After the George Floyd incident in 2020, Kamala wanted to reallocate police funding. But now she is the vice president and she once again changes her mind and supports Biden's plan of actually funding the police more. Okay, that's enough. So you probably get what's going on here. What you can see is that Senator Kamala is completely different from Vice President Kamala. You see that as a senator, she is extremely progressive, very, very far left, and you can kind of see this aggressiveness to her to get her way. But in 2020, a shift occurs when she becomes vice president. Suddenly, she becomes part of a team, and her team member is Joe Biden. She becomes more moderate, she supports more bills that are in the middle, and she almost completely changes her character from the aggressive prosecutor to the smiley, happy, positive Kamala that we see now. The question that I have, and that I think a lot of other people have as well, is which is the real Kamala? Now we get to where we are now, the big showdown that we have all been waiting for. Ladies and gentlemen, on one side we have former heavyweight White House champion weighing in at 215 pounds and standing at 6'3", we have Donald J. Trump. And on the other side, we have former vice featherweight champion weighing in at undisclosed and standing at 5'2", we have Kamala Harris. And you can catch their face-off on any news network, November 7th, 2024. So who is Kamala Harris? After all this research, after countless hours of browsing websites, reading articles, asking ChatGPT, watching tons of her past interviews, watching the most recent presidential debate, I don't know. As I said earlier, there was a big switch between Senator Kamala and Vice President Kamala. But why? Why was there such a big change? In my eyes, there are only two possible explanations. The first is that she actually did have a change of heart. She realized that in order to change this country, to unite the country, that there needs to be a more moderate approach. She actually took the time to look into each and every one of these issues and come up with her own formulation of what would be a good way to move forward. And she genuinely wants what's best for the American people and not just looking for advancements in her career. Or you have option 2, and this one makes me a little bit sick to my stomach. And that is that she simply switched positions because she saw that it would get her farther in her career. In this reality, she is still the same aggressive and progressive prosecutor that we've seen before. Her positivity and her smile are fake, but she simply wants to get in good with the audience. And all of her positions that she now stands for so strongly have not come upon an actual character change, but just as a way to please her boss. I don't know which one of these is true, but I sincerely hope that it is the first one. There is one thing that I am sure about though, and that is that she does strive to protect people like her mom. At the end of the day, I think that she is still just that little girl watching her mom suffer and wanting to help the people who are in that same situation. I think that at the very core, we sometimes forget that presidential candidates are simply people living their lives, just like us. They are still influenced by their past and their own experiences even. And I think one thing that we should strive for in this election is coming together as the United States and not dividing as Republican or Democrat. This final message is one that I do think Kamala Harris would approve of.
I've only had one client, the people. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching this video. I have really been hustling to get these longer videos out. I am trying to do one a week for the next month. You guys can keep me accountable for that. If you want to help support my channel further and its mission to study history's greatest people, you can subscribe to my Patreon, link below, or you can watch another video. And if not, I thank you for watching this one, and I will see you in the next one. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? I don't know why I try to be funny. I'm not funny. They are eating the cats and dogs. Okay, I'm done. Okay, see ya.